Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, it's another week in the books, so to speak, for sports in the area, and a week coming up. You know, it's kind of fascinating. We only have 2 weeks left in the high school basketball season before the district tournaments and all begin, and we basically have a week left in the college basketball season in terms of the regular scheduled things, but I think there's a bit of a gap between the end of the regular season and the start of the tournaments based on what I was writing down earlier. So, you know, we're kind of getting to that end, but we're going to start off today, strangely enough, with college basketball.
All right, let's go.
Because we had a kind of interesting an interesting series of events for WKU Hilltoppers. You know, we talked last week about them adding the game at Houston against a top 10, at the time it was added, opponent. I think when they played Houston was number 12. And for a half, it looked like the Hilltoppers were there for the game and were game, so to speak. But the second half, man, Houston just ran over them. I mean, I think they doubled them up in points in the second half.
Yeah, the Toppers were only down one at half.
Yeah,
I think
it was like 38, 37 or
something like that, down one at half. And I think Coach Stansberg said it right after the game. He said, you know, to beat a team that is as good as Houston, you got to play more than 23 minutes, and that's
right.
Kind of what they did. But I thought the game was worth it. I thought it was one of those risk reward games where it was worth going down there, and even though they have not played in I don't know, 2
Somebody
weeks.
already disagrees with your opinion.
Yeah, we're already
John.
getting a call about that. But even though they hadn't played in 2 weeks, it was somewhat of a disadvantage,
right,
I thought, for the Toppers. But I thought they got a lot out of it, to be perfectly honest with you. So no harm, no foul. And they bounced back this past weekend with a win, actually today, against Florida International, and a blowout win yesterday. And plus, against Houston, they did not have one of their better players, Frampton. Frampton did not play.
I don't think he played today either.
He has not played.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's kind of – you're right, though. I mean, it was worthwhile to take the risk of going and, you know, adding that game late to the schedule, going down, playing on Houston's home court, you know, and just seeing how that was going to pan out. I'm with you. It was worthwhile putting it in there. And you're right. One of the problems that the WKU Hilltoppers have had is just trying to be able to maintain a routine schedule, either because games have been postponed or pushed back or canceled altogether. You know, every time they get into a rhythm of a couple of weeks, they have a week or two off, and that's got to be real difficult.
It does. I believe, you know, I really believe they are deserving, whether they win the tournament or not, of a bid.
Yeah.
However, they're probably going to have to still win the tournament.
Right.
If they'd gone down and beat Houston, I think that would put them in. But just just the way things are breaking, they at least have to get to the finals of the Conference USA to maybe have a chance at an at-large bid. But they're probably going to have to win it, and they're more than capable. I think they're probably the best team in Conference USA, and especially once they get their rhythm back.
Yeah.
I think they're going to need Frampton.
Oh yeah,
because he's their best pure shooter. But there's very few teams in the country that has a Charles Bassey.
No, that's right.
And he's the real deal. And I really think that they can get into the tournament, that they can do some damage.
Yeah, you mentioned not many teams have a Charles Bassey. I mean, basically that's what Florida International learned over the last couple of days. I mean, they just could not do anything with him. But you're right, they do need that outside shooting to make sure teams can't just basically pack the paint in zones and that kind of stuff and make the Hilltoppers probably play in a way they don't want to.
Well, they are the ideal dangerous tournament team that has kind of played out the last so many years. Mm-hmm. They're experienced, senior driven. And with, Bassey's not a senior, but junior senior, Hollingsworth senior, Carson Williams a senior. They've got a lot of upperclassmen. Anderson's a senior. Those teams tend to do really, really well in a tournament. The deal is you got to get in.
Yeah. They wrap up their regular season with a pair of games against Old Dominion. Right now it's set for Friday and Saturday. This is a game that was canceled, and they didn't know if they were going to be able to make a pair of games. They didn't know if they were going to be able to make them up, but they figured out how to get them in on this coming weekend.
And then next week's the conference tournament.
Yeah, I think it starts a week from Wednesday, actually, March 10th. So it starts March 10th in Dallas. Still so odd that they play that tournament in Dallas. I just don't think that's the best location for them.
I don't either. I don't know what is the best. In Conference USA, it's just from Florida to Texas to Virginia to Western, Tennessee. It's everywhere. Texas, they probably have the facilities that can host both the men and women at the same time.
Right.
But it is so out of the way. And to be honest with you, most of the Texas teams are not the most basketball hungry fans in the world, to be honest with you. I always thought Birmingham would be a good place.
Yeah.
Even Bowling Green occasionally.
Yeah. I mean, Bowling Green would be great.
Yes.
Meanwhile, in the SEC tournament also starts a week from Wednesday. It starts March 10th as well. And the ACC tournament starts March 9th.
That's the men. The women are this week.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The men's tournaments. I probably should have put the women's down here. But anyway, yes, the women are getting started earlier. The men's tournaments are a week away. Meanwhile, Kentucky had a 3-game winning streak going, and then they ran into Florida, and that didn't go so well for them.
Close game.
It was close.
Got beat 4 at I think it was 83, 79, something like that. And it was Kentucky did not shoot it well. Mm-hmm. And according to Coach Cal, he said a couple of his players did not show up. Well, that's the problem when you convert to only starting to play 7. If a couple of them don't, then they're in trouble.
Now you're playing 5 if 2 of them don't show up.
That's exactly right, and that's the problem. Kentucky has kind of played themselves into. If you didn't see records anymore, you would think Kentucky's, just by how they've been playing, is a top 50 team, and they probably are just in terms of talent.
Yeah.
But when you dig yourself a hole like they did. 7-13 or whatever they were, 8-13 at one time. When you dig yourself a hole like that, then a loss to like Florida just kills you.
Yeah.
Because if you were like a normal year, if they were 16-4
right.
and lost to Florida, okay, well, you're still in the tournament.
Yeah.
And you have to be perfect at the end of the year, if you're a Kentucky, if you're even a Duke and teams like that, to get in. You can't afford these losses anymore.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is Kentucky's got to win the SEC tournament.
Yeah, because the 2 games that they have left on their schedule, Ole Miss and South Carolina, that doesn't help them at all. I mean, they need to win those games, but it doesn't do anything for them because neither of those teams are really doing anything themselves.
Right, that's right. And they're not going to let Kentucky, I don't care who you are, Kentucky, Duke, you're not getting in with a losing record.
Yeah.
And they,
not even this year, hopefully.
Not even this year, unless you win the tournament, and there's not enough games left for Kentucky to have a winning record.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Louisville, they won at Duke on Saturday. They had an impressive win in that game.
Louisville's a strange team. The one thing, I mentioned last week, they're the worst COVID team I know of.
Yeah. Because
they've had 2 delays, and both their first games back against Wisconsin and against North Carolina were embarrassing. I mean, they got beat 35-40 by both teams.
Yeah.
The good news about Louisville is their game after the fact has been really good. They came back after that terrible defeat against North Carolina and they beat Notre Dame at home.
Yep.
And then they went on the road and just they beat a hot Duke team. I mean, Duke's playing great and beat them in overtime. And tell you what, their little senior grad transfer guard Carlik Jones is. He may be the player of the year in the ACC. I mean, he's 5'11", 6 foot, and he is tremendous.
Yeah.
And that's a big win. Louisville's in the tournament now.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty solid. I mean, they can't. They got 2-3 more games left. I think 2 games left. And the conference tournament. I don't think they need to go 0-3 or 4. That probably puts them on the bubble. But if they win a couple of those, they're solidly in the tournament.
Yeah. Their last 2 regular season games are against 2 ranked opponents, Virginia Tech and Virginia, and
a split. They're no doubt in.
Yeah, but it does give them an excellent chance to kind of make a statement this week.
Yeah, they got a shot if they could win one of those and win a couple games at the ACC, probably to move up to maybe to that 4 or 5 line.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess maybe I don't know how the committee is going to view certain things this year. I would hope that certain things are on the table, such as looking at the schedules and the stoppages and that kind of stuff to see how that impacted a team, because you just can't. a lot of times injuries, I don't think, make a huge difference in how the committee selects, what your seating is, that kind of stuff. They kind of look at the whole body of work unless it's a significant injury at that time, maybe. Right. But this year, I feel like the selection committee really needs to look down the whole of the schedule.
I agree. They need
kind of weigh who was playing when.
I would hope they would do their research.
Yeah.
You just can't look at RPIs and those rankings, or hey, they got beat by 35 at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I do think it would be favorable to anybody to look at, who played, who was there, and so forth. I think that would probably be beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, because you might have to look at it and say, what is their optimum team? When the people who are supposed to be there are there,
right.
What do they really look like?
Right.
Versus some of those people missing. I mean, right now that would even apply to WKU in a lot of ways because they've had a couple of guys. I mean, I think Josh Anderson maybe missed part of today or yesterday.
He didn't play yesterday. I don't think he played. I don't know if he played today or not.
Right. So I don't think he played today. I think he was on.
It didn't need a lot to beat Florida International.
They did not. But their optimum team, WKU's optimum team, is different than when you take out Frampton and Anderson. That's true for anybody.
Right.
But I feel like the selection committee, that's something that has to be weighed this year. Ironically enough, you mentioned the hot Duke team going back to Kentucky, having a 3-game winning streak. Kansas was looking pretty good. North Carolina was looking better.
Kansas, North Carolina are in.
Yeah, I mean the Blue Bloods headed into the weekend were looking a lot better.
Right.
Kentucky and Duke both took dents in the weekend.
Yeah, it's a tough loss for Duke, but Duke's won like 5 out of 6,
yeah.
and they still have games that can get them in.
Right.
And I'm not saying that the NCAA will do them a favor by putting them in, but I think it's kind of hard to argue that they're not one of the better teams in the country. And if they win out, I don't think they have to win the ACC tournament, but they need to win a couple games. I think they're in.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting how that shaped up last week. I mean, because prior to last week, those teams that we consider the Blue Bloods had basically like train wrecks for most of the season, one way or another. I mean, even if they won games a lot of times, they didn't look necessarily like you would expect them to.
Well, Duke's been really good since their lottery pick decided he didn't want to play anymore.
That's right. Addition by subtraction.
It really is. I mean, sometimes it is. I mean, sometimes chemistry, culture can be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And when a player is, I've always said there's 2 types of players. There are energy givers and energy takers.
Yeah.
And you better not have too many on your team that are energy takers because they suck the life out of the team. Well,
and on to that point, I mean, if your better player is an energy taker, that's real detriment for the team because it's hard to get around. Sure. I mean, sure, as a coach, it's hard to get around the fact that it's hard to win without them because just at the talent level, but at the same, especially in basketball. But at the same time, it's hard to win with them because you got to change the energy of the team in some way.
Energy and players who, sometimes players feel like they're obligated to get certain players the ball.
Yeah.
And then when that player's not there, it kind of frees you up to kind of just to play.
Right.
And, so they played 100% better since he left. It's just been it's interesting. Pitt's 2 best players walked away with like 2 or 3 weeks to go in the season.
Yeah.
Transfer portal. I mean, you should not be allowed to enter a transfer portal
in the middle of the season.
No, you shouldn't.
No, I don't think so.
It's too easy of an out for players right now. I mean, it's become AAU Central.
Yeah.
I just leave whenever I want to or whatever, and that shouldn't be available because you're, absent abuse. Stick around.
Yeah.
At least play the season.
I'm of course a little more lenient just in the idea of players transferring, as we've discussed on this show before. But I'm with you. I mean, if you're there for the season, you should not be able to go anywhere during the course of the season, or just. But then at the same time, if they're not going to be on the team, or where are they going to be at the same time? I mean, they came there to be involved in the sport. I'm not saying they should be able to enter the transfer portal before the season's over. I'm just saying it also makes a curious dynamic for them as college students as well, or as part of those programs if they decide they don't want to play. I mean, it's got to be a tricky situation in a year like this. Now, other years, I say it's different altogether.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. When we come back, we're going to talk a little high school basketball.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
John, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we have a couple of weeks left in the high school basketball season. The district tournaments begin 2 weeks from today, I believe it is. The 15th district begins 2 weeks from today at Barron County. And then the other districts in the area are about that same start time.
Latest starting time ever, probably, at least in my memory.
Yeah, because, I mean, usually we're gearing up for the state tournament. You know, we're in the middle of the region, and you know, we're about ready for the state tournament to tip off. So, yeah, it's a little bit odd. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about some spring sports coming up here in the next segment, but it's a little bit odd in this sense that we're going to have this overlap. All right, so like the spring sports start March 29th, or at least baseball, softball, first games are March 29th, which is kind of closer to what their old start date was.
After the state tournament.
Yeah, after the state tournament. But the way this is going to work out is, you know, your basketball is going to run right up into your spring sports for a lot of your schools. I don't know, as we talked about on this show before, you know, there's not a whole lot of crossover between players playing one sport, playing two sports like this, basketball into baseball or basketball into softball. But there is some, and I'm curious how that will affect the teams, you know, that will need some of these players. It's because most of ours will be done. It's just that
we do it in football.
We do
football, basketball. So yeah,
I don't really have a problem with it. But no offense to you as a former coach there, John, and as a lifelong coach, but coaches seem to cry a lot about their players.
They do.
Not getting enough practice time and things of that nature.
They do.
I imagine there will be a little bit of belly aching out of this particular circumstance as well.
They do at the start.
Yeah.
And then once they get in the season, that's it.
Yeah.
You just play.
That's right. Anyway, so around here for our high school basketball, as we mentioned the last couple of weeks, are upon us. Let's start out with the Barron County Trojans. And
all right, boys. We're going to go boys.
We're going to go with the boys.
15-6.
15-6.
How many people would have predicted that?
Definitely not many
ago.
after Aiden Eichen went down with a knee injury in the second week of the season. But last week was a kind of a crazy week for them.
Yep.
You know, they lost the game to Franklin Simpson.
50-41.
Yeah, just could not hit shots in that game. I mean, Franklin Simpson played basically like a 1-3-1 trap kind of setup, and Barron just could not get them out of it. They could not hit shots well enough, which has not really been their problem, at least from outside or even they've had some rebounding issues against teams and that kind of thing, but in terms of shooting and getting people out of his own, they've been able to do that in most games.
Yeah, that was an ugly one.
Yeah.
That was hard to watch.
Yes.
I want to give a little prop out to Ryan Shirley, though. Ryan did not have a big scoring night, but he had 16 rebounds.
Yeah, he was mixing it up.
6 foot, 16 rebounds is pretty good.
Yeah, he was if you didn't pay attention, you probably didn't notice some things, like you as a general fan.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he was really mixing it up. And Franklin Simpson had some good size, and they had some pretty tough guys, you know, to handle. So there was that game. Then they come back against South Warren, a team previously they had shot very poorly against.
Let me give you a shout out to our station.
Yes.
Was it you that shot the last play, or was it
Greg Rich, who also shoots photos for us? Yes.
Incredible. The video of how Barron came back to win.
Yeah, I know.
You know, just go to the website. And incredible comeback. Hard to think that Barron could come back and win to score 5 points in about 10 seconds.
Yeah, the video is 34 seconds long, and you can find it on our Twitter, and I need to get it on the page as well.
It started with a Mason Griggs basically drive to the basket to tie it.
Yeah.
And then
he split two defenders and hit the layup.
Nice shot.
Yeah.
That's right. And then South Warren brings the ball down the floor. They do not call timeout, which is fine. And really a good defensive play by Withrow.
Yes.
Gavin Withrow just picks this guy's pocket, probably with about 5 seconds to go, and pitches instantly to Tate Pointer. Tate Pointer makes a couple dribbles. It's actually less than 5. probably 3. And 3-pointer gets right inside the half court line, probably 2 steps past the half court line. It'd be from the logo in a lot of places, and knocks down the 3. He actually shoots it. It wasn't like one of those long. He actually shoots it. I think he banks it in.
Yeah.
And just an incredible comeback win against South Warren. And it's, they've played each other twice, and I don't think either team has got to 50 either game.
No, they haven't.
And in fact, I told Robert Bauer before the game, I texted Robert, I said the first team to 45 wins.
Yeah.
And that 3 made it 46-43, so I guess I got one right.
Yeah, I mean, and I love on that video that we're talking about, the video doesn't actually show the ball going in, but Mason Griggs is standing like right in the front of the video looking up.
Yeah.
And like his response is pretty priceless.
And then the bench running out there. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always great to see those moments.
Pretty cool.
But of course, then they came back Saturday and played Elizabethtown, who is
for real.
They are very good.
Yeah, and number 2 in its state, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team. I think we talked about this last week. I mean, they beat Bowling Green handily at Elizabethtown,
about 25 points.
Yeah, and they beat, what was it, 87-67, I think.
87-67. The game was into the first quarter. Barron, it was like 34-20 something in the first quarter. In fact, Barron had more pretty much at halftime they did against South Warren.
Right.
I mean, Barron scored, but they couldn't stop them. I mean, E-Town's not real deep. They got 6 or 7 kids, but man, they got 5 kids that can all shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a pretty neat team to watch, and it was a game that Warren picked up. He thought it'd help us going into the district, and I tend to agree with him. We're probably not going to face anybody that good coming up. So, Tay Pointer had another good game. He had 23.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, since they beat Bowling Green by 28 or whatever that was, obviously that's the best team I would say Barron has seen this year, and they opened the season against Bowling Green.
Right.
So you're just not going to – there's not a team in the 4th region better than that at the moment.
No, if it is, it'd be Bowling Green. You're right. E-Town handled Bowling Green pretty easily. I would think they played again. It'd be obviously closer, but anyway, E-Town's good. Aiden Miller had 14 that game too. He continues to play well, but Barron went 1-2 this week. But I still think they have improved so much this year. They're give the coaches credit and give the players credit. They've done a good job.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Scotties they opened the week last Monday with a good win over Metcalfe County, 52-44. They came back with I would refer to it as a surprising loss at Adair,
34-50.
Yeah,
I mean that was. I've got a friend who has a son that plays for Adair, but Adair's okay.
Yeah,
I mean they're kind of a medium. I mean, in the middle of the 5th region. I mean, they're not a threat to win that region. But to only score 34, and Sam Bowling had 18 of the 34.
Yeah,
that was not a really good performance. But that was that was surprising, to say the least.
Yeah, but meanwhile, then they come back and they put the clamps on Franklin Simpson. I mean, Glasgow beat them 51-37 on Saturday. On Thursday,
No, that was girls.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one.
The boys lost to Franklin.
That's right.
70-61.
That's right, 70-61. One of the things, that was actually my point, and then I looked down at the score, the wrong one.
Right.
Glasgow, generally speaking, the surprising thing about the Adair County game was their offense.
34, yeah.
Yeah, because they, generally speaking, score well.
Yep.
They just sometimes struggle at stopping other teams or maintaining, I guess, the defensive intensity throughout the course of a game. But generally speaking, their offense is not their issue. So that was what was surprising about the Adair County game.
They've got 4 or 5 kids that can score. I mean, obviously Sam Bowling's proven to be one of the best players in the region.
Yeah.
But Brandon Short's a good shooter. You got Harlow back, and I've gone blank. The other guard is
Jackson Poland.
Jackson Poland is double figure all year well. So they have not had a hard time scoring, but they did against Adair, but they ended the week with a good win against Southwestern.
Yeah, that was the one I meant to look at. They won that game 67-56. Southwestern has had a strong team.
Mm-hmm. So they went 2-2 for the week.
Yeah, so and that's about their busiest week of the season. I mean, they got in 4 games, and they've kind of had a hard time getting in some of their games, not because of them at all, but because of the other teams they've played. So yeah, that's a solid week for them going 2-2. I think overall, like I said, the anomaly was at a Dare County game.
That was a strange one.
Yeah.
It was at Adair, and that's it's a little different. I think it was at Adair. I'm pretty sure that game was. That's a little bit different environment up there. To be honest with you, but still, 34. That's that's not a real good shooting performance, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, and when I was talking about beating Metcalf, the Glasgow girls opened last week with a good win over Metcalf's team they had lost to in quadruple overtime,
right.
in a high scoring game.
So the guys were 2-1. They did not. Did they play Metcalf?
Yeah, they were 2-1. I'm sorry. Yeah, they were 2-1.
You've confused me. I didn't think they played Metcalf.
Well, this is what I get for looking at my phone to look at this instead of just writing my notes down from the get-go. That's you're so much more organized than I am.
Yeah, except for the phone goes off.
It happens.
Yeah.
But back over on the girls' side, the Lady Scotties opened the week with that win against Metcalf County. Then they also went to Adair and struggled against a team that has not been very good this year, to be honest. I mean, that's one of Caverna's wins, I think, is against Adair County.
Yeah, the Glasgow girls' week it could have been a super week. I mean, the win against Metcalf was a good win, 52-44. The win against Franklin, who had just beat Barron, they beat Franklin 51-37. That's a really good win. But they sandwiched Adair in there. And to be honest with you, I looked 2 or 3 consecutive days at the scoreboard to make sure that score was right. When they lost to 50, right. They lost 50-44 to Adair, because Adair, I mean, they are, to say the least, have been really down. I mean, I think they only got 2 or 3 wins. Yeah. And, I mean, I was surprised at that one, to say the least. But overall, they had a good week, against Metcalf. Nancy Adwell had a good, she had 14. Chloe Hale had a double-double against Metcalf. I think 13 points and 11 rebounds. And in the Franklin win, they were 7 out of 15 from 3, led by Mia Cassidy. Mm-hmm. So they did a lot of good things, but it just shows you how crazy the girls' region is.
Yeah, exactly.
For them then to go and to lose to Adair. Mm-hmm. And we were talking off air, and I really believe it. There would be no situation come district tournament or regional tournament, for that matter, that you tell me anybody beats anybody. There is nothing that would surprise me. The only surprise to me would be if Bowling Green gets beat. Yeah. Because as long as they've got all their guns, all their good players, then I think there is a gap. Mm-hmm. Their record doesn't show that, because they have played a brutal schedule.
Yeah, their last 2 weeks of their games have been against some of the best teams in the state.
Yeah, they played Louisville Butler. They played Bethlehem, one of the best teams in the state. They played, I think, E-Town. I mean, they played them all. And that would be the only surprise if Bowling Green goes down. Anybody else that loses to somebody else, it just wouldn't – I don't think it'd be that surprising.
Yeah, I think the thing about – going back to the Lady Scotties loss at Adair County, the thing about that one is – they held Metcalf County to 44 points. Metcalf, I think, might be the highest scoring team in the 4th region.
They were. I don't think they are now.
Yeah, they may have dropped off, but, I mean, as a team, generally speaking, they can put up some points. So they beat them 52-44. They held Franklin Simpson to 37. Now, Franklin Simpson isn't necessarily a great shooting team, but they, generally speaking, score points because of the way they play. They get a number of easier baskets, I think, a lot of times. So they shut that down pretty effectively, and then they gave up 50 to Adair. And I'm pretty sure Coach Pippin probably was scratching his head by the time that week was over with as well.
Yeah, because he would be very familiar with Adair being at Russell County.
Yeah.
Russell and Adair are not in the same region, but they are huge rivals.
Yeah, next-door neighbors.
Next-door neighbors. And at one time, the two schools did not play in any sports. But they went about 10 years and refused to play because of that rivalry. It's true.
Meanwhile, the Trojanettes, I mean, we already mentioned they opened, the week with that loss to Franklin Simpson, and it was 57-51. Raven Ennis did not play in that game, and
no, she didn't play this week.
Yeah, she didn't play at all during these games.
And they went 1-2.
Yeah, they went 1-2, and I think one of the things that I thought came out of that game was Barron does a lot of good things, but one of their players who can get her own scores, Macy Lockhart, is out for the season. The other one is Raven Ennis, but I thought the thing that really hurt them in that game was Raven Ennis's not being there to rebound. Franklin just killed them on the boards in that game. Right.
They, I mean, it's hard to overcome when you lose 2 scores like that.
Yeah.
There's then you drop down to relying on a lot of young players. Mm-hmm. So that is tough. I do want to give a shout out to Emma Hughes. She had 13 that game, and then against South Warren she had 11.
Yeah.
And
the lone senior,
and I just do want to give a shout out to her because you don't see very much anymore in girls basketball. First of all, there's not a lot of seniors,
right?
And second of all, if you do see seniors anymore in girls basketball, they have been starting for 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the girls right now in basketball, they don't wait around. And Emma, this is the first year she started.
Yeah.
And she has stuck with it. And that's old school, where
mm-hmm.
you used to have players who would play freshman ball, JV ball, and they would then get their chance and they would step in. And today, you just don't see that much. They move on if they don't get their time their freshman sophomore year, they tend to move on to other sports or whatever. And I think it says a lot about Emma that she was willing to hang in there and tough it out, and I'm really happy for her. She's a good kid.
Yeah, been a solid contributor.
A solid contributor. That's right. She does a lot of things well for them. Does a lot of the makes a lot of the hustle plays and so forth like that. You put her out there and Katie Murphy, mm-hmm. those two can really get after you.
Yeah, well, and they won that game against South Warren 41-38 in overtime. So, I mean, another 2 gritty wins down there for Barron County at South Warren. Unfortunately, they came back Saturday and played Breckenridge County, and Breckenridge proved that they really were as good as they looked earlier in the season when they beat Barron.
Yeah, they're a junior, senior dominated team. You don't see a lot of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you don't, and they've got good guards, and they will be one of the favorites to come out of the 3rd region.
Yeah. I don't know if they're still rated the top team in the 3rd region, but they've got to be right up there.
They're up there, yeah.
So yeah, that was a grind of a week for the Trojanettes.
This week, the guys and girls have not quite the schedule this week. I'm not saying there's, like I said, anything can happen.
Yeah.
But I think they have Cumberland on Tuesday, Caverna on Friday.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how the girls' game is with Caverna because Caverna lost last week to LaRue County. I think they ended up losing by 12, but they were competitive in that game, and they are coming along. Corn has some nice players over there. They've had 2 10-day stoppages, I think, this year. Had some problems trying to, before the season even got started. But he's got some quality players. It's just he's also running into that depth issue in numbers. When you look at Kayliana Richardson, who's like a 6'1" wing. I mean, she can do a little bit of everything. You have Briley Hoskins, who's back from a knee injury last year, missed most last year. Krista Gamboa, who missed all of last year with a knee injury. It'll be interesting to see how that team's coming along.
Sure.
And that'll be an interesting thing with them on Friday night with Barron.
Look forward to it.
Yep. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
John, can you believe it? Baseball season is like upon us, Major League Baseball, and I don't know about you, but maybe because time has stood still for the last year, but it's like the baseball season just ended.
It's part of it. I mean, spring training, the first official games were yesterday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's always, if it wasn't for basketball, winter to me would be miserable, to say the least. But, baseball is a sign, and softball too, by the way, is just a sign that, the winter is about to leave us. And it is, the daylight is lasting longer now, around 5:30 now, and it's just all those to me are positive signs. It looks like the virus numbers are getting better.
Uh-huh.
So, it looks like there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, what is it? March is supposed to be in like a lion and out like a lamb, but for us this year in measuring things like that, I think it's in like we can go outside and, out like we can stay outside, I guess.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, what was weird is we had that miserable winter blast, 2 weeks ago now.
And then the flood.
The flood
from yesterday.
Yeah. I don't know about at your house. I mean, you live in town, right? So,
I do.
Yeah, my street, there are 2 places near my house. One across the street that when it rains, it turns into a pond and it stays there for a little while. And in my backyard is, during the summertime, it's a pond, but it's basically dried up backyard field, not actually in my yard. Yesterday, the water was like whitewater rapids running down into that pond behind my house. It was pretty impressive, to be honest with you.
Largest, I think WPKO said it was the most rain we've had in a month in history.
Well, it certainly came down.
I mean, 5 inches of rain yesterday is like 2.5 feet of snow.
Yeah, the only thing I could think while it was like the bottom was dropping out yesterday was, thank goodness it's not snow.
Right, that's exactly right.
Because I think Florida would have been my next stop. Anyway, back to the baseball and whatnot. Speaking of Florida, I guess the teams, they go to Arizona
and Florida.
Yeah, Arizona and Florida, and as you mentioned, the start of the season basically was yesterday in terms of like getting the spring games and all that kind of stuff. I think it was 2 weeks ago, was it, when the pitchers, or a week ago maybe?
No, it's been longer than that. Yeah. Pitchers and catchers have been there for
a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, a couple of weeks, yeah, right.
Yeah, so I mean those are all the positive signs. But as you look toward the Major League Baseball season, what are some things you're looking forward to, or that you're paying attention to, I guess?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to some type of normalcy. I'm looking forward to being able to actually see. I thought it was neat. I watched some of the games yesterday. It was on the MLB network. Didn't watch a lot of them, but I just watched segments of it. I thought it was neat to see people there.
Yeah.
I mean,
instead of cutouts.
Instead of cutouts, actually people there, I thought was neat, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm looking forward. I mean, I want to see what the Reds do. This is we do a lot of the Reds games, so I'm looking forward to see. It's disappointing that they did not go out and sign very many people, and they lost Trevor Bauer. That's going to be a big hit, but we'll kind of see where they stand.
Yeah, they weren't real active in the offseason. I was a little bit surprised because it looked like they were close last year. I mean, I know.
They were close, and I didn't expect them to sign Trevor Bauer. He's signed for basically $100 and something million for 3 years.
So are you saying the Reds might be a little too cheap?
Well, they're not going to pay anybody. I wouldn't either. They're not going to pay a pitcher $40 million a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's way over their budget.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not who they are.
Right.
But they didn't go out and get very many other people either. So we'll see what they do. I mean, they were, they got a lot of their positional players back. But they did trade their closers gone, their best pitchers gone. So we'll see how it goes. It's just last year was like a sprint, 60 games.
Yeah.
This year it's a full season, 162. Be interesting to see how COVID, if they get that in. With the COVID numbers going down, how will that affect them? They're going to get their season in. How many games will they have to set out or whatever? We'll see how that goes. But yeah, baseball is baseball is the best sport to go watch in person.
Yeah.
Not the greatest sport to watch 3 hours, on your couch. That's it's not. It didn't have that quite of excitement, but to go and to be outside, it's there's something that is appealing to that.
Yeah, and as we've learned in the last year, which we didn't know when the whole COVID outbreak started, the outdoor sports are a lot less vulnerable, which means you can have more people there because you can keep them out. Your super spreading situations aren't going to be as prevalent outdoors, apparently, which means you can have more people there in the outside and spread them out.
And the vaccinations.
The vaccinations are picking up.
And be honest with you, the bad news about Major League Baseball is this could be the last year that you're going to watch the full season because it's their contract with the labor union and players is up, and that is two groups of people that just don't get along.
Yeah, I mean, as we saw just last season, they couldn't get the season started. I mean, they had a window of opportunity to be the only game in town.
Well, how about 3 weeks ago where the owners offered the players this deal to push the season back another three more weeks, just delay it for 3 more weeks and play 154 games, but we'll pay you 162. You'll get your full. If you just push it back 3 weeks, we're going to expand the playoffs like last year, but we're going to push it back. We're going to play 154, but you get your full benefits for even the games you don't play. And the players rejected it.
Yeah.
The players' union rejected it.
Yeah.
And that just tells me that, at the end of the year, it's going to be It will be very difficult to get those two sides to get together.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, Major League Baseball is the only professional sport that's actually missed basically a whole season in a labor dispute.
Yeah, it's
all the others have cobbled together something. They managed to get a season in, partial seasons, but Major League Baseball, the owners and the players just –
Not necessarily a team.
They are not. No, they don't ever seem to be on the same page.
They don't.
It's so weird.
You know, if it's like if they tell you if your employer says if you come in 10 less days next year, but we're going to pay you like you can't like you know you actually worked those 10 days.
Yeah.
You're going to get the same salary. You just don't have to work 10.
It's called a paid vacation.
How many people in their right mind would turn that down?
I mean, yeah, and that's just it. I just don't. I never can quite understand the owners and the players union, the relationship they have.
Yeah, who gets along worse, Congress or Major League Baseball and the Players Association? Which is the worst relationship?
I actually think it's the Players Association.
I do too. I think the Democrats and Republicans in Congress get along a little bit better.
Yeah,
they just won't. They won't let you know it
together.
Yeah, that's right. They just
the owners and the players never have lunch together. Well, anyway, we'll look forward to this season. I will tell you though, I did enjoy the sprint nature of last season more so than I do just the regular Major League Baseball
and the expanded playoffs.
Season. Yeah,
I do too.
I thought there were some things out of that they needed to fix.
I agree.
They need to incorporate going forward.
Well, they're keeping the 7-inning doubleheaders.
I actually like that too.
They're keeping the international extra inning rule where you start at second. I like that too.
Yep.
They did not keep the DH in the National League.
I don't know about that one. I actually don't really care about the DH one.
And they also took, and they admitted they took some of the sting out of the ball.
Yeah,
so
that's interesting.
So yeah, it is. You know, so in theory, some of the power in the home runs may not be quite as there.
I will say this: I much prefer the scrappy form of baseball versus the slugger form of baseball. You know, where you kind of hit and runs and you plays, squeeze plays, bunts.
Well, what it does is it creates more action.
Yeah, and my favorite sports are all action, more action oriented.
Right. Right now in baseball, there's more strikeouts than there's ever been, and there's actually, I think studies will show in the last 2-3 years there's more time in which nothing happens.
Yeah.
You either strike out, so there's nobody hitting anything or nobody making a play,
right,
or a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Not much going on a walk.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's a home run, so there's no defense there either.
Yeah.
So there's not near the plays that are made, which makes the game a little bit less exciting.
Yeah. Well, I am looking forward to some parts of Major League Baseball. I'm curious to see how some of this pans out, and I'm curious to see how some of the teams do, especially the Reds, because they, like we said, they were close. That last year was the year that they seemed to finally get the pitching and the hitting kind of down
at the very end of the season.
Yeah, no, because the previous 3 or 4 seasons, that one was good and the other was not. So
right.
We'll see how that pans out for them. And looking forward to the high school sports getting played this year.
They're going to play.
They're going to play. Thank goodness. I mean, I hate it for the kids that were seniors last year and missed their whole seasons. I'm glad they're gonna get this done this year.
And we'll try to have the coaches on, right?
Yeah, that's right. Over the next 3 weeks, we're going to try to get that lined up. Like I said, the first games are March 29th, so we'll try to get that lined up as well. All right, it's Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, we get a special treat this year because there's spring football thanks to the football championship series, or at least some of them.
Not spring football practice.
No, actual spring football games that account for something.
Is there? I haven't seen it on television.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be on television unless you got ESPN Plus. You can probably track down some games.
Well, the SEC was playing in the spring to be on TV.
Well, you know that, but they got a multi-billion-dollar contract with somebody.
Right. So who's playing? Who's playing in this?
So it's basically what we used to refer to as Division II, or Division I AA, I guess is what it is, a football championship series. So it's all those conferences, which includes like the ASUN, OVC, Mountain Valley Conference, I think, is one of them. There are others like the SWAC and the MEAC. They're also playing. Although the SWAC and the MEAC, I don't think actually play in the playoffs.
The MEAC, but not the MAC.
Not the MAC. Okay. Not the MAC.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah, no, the MAC is still holding down Miami, Ohio, and those folks.
Okay, all right. No, I have not ventured to watch spring football.
Well, I think the interesting thing is they kind of follow the same model as like the football bowl series programs, conferences, in that most of them are playing only in-conference games, so 6 or 8 in-conference games. Some of them were allowed to play an out-of-conference game, but it had to be like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks even before the season really officially started. So like
Chattanooga came to play Western last year.
Yeah, sort of like that. And so like Jackson State played some NAIA school, which is where Deion Sanders is now.
Okay.
Yeah, which is why I actually even paid attention to that. But Jackson State, it has a rich football history. It's just that Deion Sanders was not aware of that. Because he mentioned after the game that he hopes to, put Jackson State on the map. Well, I think it has 3 Hall of Famers in the Professional Football Hall of Fame at the moment.
Is that where Walter Payton played?
Yeah, Walter Payton and Jackie Slater.
There you go.
So, and then
just little details.
Yeah, the little details. I mean, that aren't that important.
Of course, Deion is about Deion.
Yeah, his details are only relevant if they're relevant to Deion.
That's right.
But anyway, but it is interesting. So you've got I think it's Eastern Kentucky is playing. Who,
by the way, has announced they're leaving the OVC.
Yeah.
After a 100-year membership.
Yeah, they're going to the A-Sun, I believe.
With Bellarmine.
Yep, with Bellarmine. So.
And Liberty.
Yep, that's right. So,
David Lipscomb, maybe.
Yep, I believe that's right.
That may be. They may end up being in a better position.
Sounds like it. At least on the basketball front for certain. I mean, that sounds pretty good, I think.
Yes.
Murray State is also playing a spring schedule, because they're in the OVC, I believe it is, and as a Division I AA football program. So they're playing. So we've got some of our schools, colleges, that we didn't get to see at all in the fall. They're playing a spring schedule. So that's kind of interesting. The real games, I think, within the conferences begin this week.
Okay.
And
I will not watch it. I'll be watching basketball, probably.
Yeah,
the women's tournaments are this for the ACC and SEC women's tournament is this week. I'll probably be watching some of that.
Yep. But you also mentioned basketball. There are tournaments going on right now. The Mid-South Conference is being played over at, I think, Bowling Green High School.
Yeah, we got a lot of local kids that are playing it for Campbellsville and Lindsey Wilson.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they were playing each other today. The women's teams were. They were the 2 and 3 seeds,
right.
I think.
And regardless who wins this one, both teams are in the top 20. They will get a bid to the national tournament next week.
Yeah. I was trying to see what the score of this game was, but I'm not. Their record keeping is a little bit suspect in terms of like live stats and whatnot, at least from what I can tell.
Okay.
But yeah, so they were both playing over there today, and as you mentioned, 2 of the better programs in NAIA in that conference, especially.
No doubt.
Last year was a bit of a shocker because they were the 2 best programs, and I went over there to cover them. They played on Sunday against 2 teams they had beaten soundly, so it was matched up. They were the 1 and 2. They both win. They move on to the next day, and they would play each other. I guess it was on a Monday. And they both lost that game.
In front of you?
Well, not in front of me because I didn't go to those.
Oh, you didn't go? Okay, you were waiting.
Yeah, I thought they were going to play each other in the championship, and of course, at that time, we had several players just here that were playing.
So they can't blame you for that.
No, maybe I should have gone to the games. It's just that, as we mentioned already, it was at the same time as the regional tournament was going on, which I had to be at on that day as well, so I couldn't. I've not managed to discover how to be osmosis and split myself in 2 and be in 2 places. I keep trying. It doesn't work out.
That would be impressive.
I believe that's osmosis. I may have gotten that wrong, all you science folks, and I apologize for that.
I don't think that's the right word.
No, I don't think so.
Osmosis, I think, you could probably see through you, but I don't think it's splitting apart.
Well, that would be if I was translucent.
Okay, there you go.
that one I got. But real quick, we wanted to talk about Grace Turner.
Yeah.
Former Monroe County basketball
player. I thought her
player.
interview last night, we'll throw this out to Mr. Brian Webb on Channel 13, their Sports Connection show at night.
Yep.
I thought the interview with her was fantastic. She did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, of course, all the Turner girls played basketball.
What a family,
Reagan still let Lindsey Wilson playing. I think this is her senior year.
2,000 points she scored.
Yep, 2,000 points she scored. And Grace had a great outing at the Conference USA indoor meets. And
pole vault and high jump.
That's right. So congratulations to her. All right, it's the Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.